welcome everyone. And I was sharing out, so I forgot to switch to the other screen. Oh my God. See, I told you, this is like backwards studio here. How's everyone tonight? This is my very special guest, Sally Elka. How are you tonight, Sally?
Fantastic. How are you going?
I'm going good. Sally is an interdimensional channeler, healer, psychic, reader, does everything, don't you?
Yes, I do a range of different things.
Okay, so tell us what you do, Sally.
All right. Well, I mean, this honestly, like running through this kind of like list of things never gets any less uncomfortable. But I sort of don't really like to, I guess, categorize or define myself by the things that I've done or studied or by any title. However, for the purposes of this segment, work-wise, I am working with clients energetically, so psychically, and doing like a range of energy work. Yep. However, that does sort of like spill over into what else I've got going on, which is dream work, like navigating the astral realms,
yep.
Understanding those dimensions. Then obviously like physical Reiki as well, in-person remote healing. I'm also interested in, like abduction stories and contact stories and things like that, extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional channeling, helping others develop those abilities as well.
So how did you get into this spiritual field? Did you start as a child? Did you have some experiences?
Yeah, so I would say that it's just progressively continued and expanded as I've gotten older. Obviously, I've mentioned quite a few times in previous videos that it really began with the astral travel and navigating those realms and the contact that I had with beings and spirit in the astral or in the sleep when I was asleep. That progressed to some sort of like spirit contact growing up with maybe like entities, ghosts, some sort of things, sort of like little stories here and there. I've got lots of them. And then from there, I would say probably in my, I would say in my early 20s was when I really started to delve a little bit deeper into the topics like quantum science, and quantum physics, philosophy, psychology, the history, history, a lot of conspiracy things as well, or conspiracy.
It comes up, doesn't it, when you do your digging?
Absolutely. Even like different religions and exploring the Bible and those texts and other texts like empty tablets or things like that.
Or Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah.
I was reading the Dead Sea Scrolls the other night, and I was reading the dialogue of the Scrolls, and it was like Jesus was saying, "Oh my God, this is going to take all night with you people." You just sort of got that feeling that it was sort of extremely real and to the point.
And I would say from there, once I fell pregnant, I started having premonitions and visions, and a lot more psychic development came through. And then by the time my son was born, and as the years went on, I made the connections and realized that what I'd seen at that time and known and whatnot was actually, a premonition or whatnot. So from there, I think I became really, really interested. I started looking into frequency work and things like that. Also astrology. So for the last sort of 10 years, I've been doing a lot of work with Western and Vedic astrology, mainly for myself, family, friends, some clients here and there. I like to I believe everything does tie in together, and there's no black and white, and there's just
Yep.
such expansive amount of truth out there. So I find all of these things very interesting, and I've always got this like kind of hunger for knowing more and knowledge and expanding and deepening myself.
Yep. Well, there's just so much. It's just like, the tree of life. Like, as soon as you find out one question, it creates another 10 questions.
Yeah.
And people think that you get to a point where you know everything. It's like, no. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. That's
Definitely.
the beauty of it.
So, like when I was doing the energy work, or the frequency and the energy work together, that led me into, or behind the scenes, I was kind of using the tarot and reading, or like listening to and reading the Law of One as well. So all of that, I guess, created a really fantastic structure, foundation for me to start really honing in on those things and giving them a little bit more attention. With the tarot, I found that it wasn't something that I necessarily really ever wanted to go into and be doing for clients. However, I'm now at a point where I do, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. But at the time, it wasn't a focus, and neither was doing any kind of energy work, really. It was just for my own benefit and knowledge. But through working with the tarot and my understandings from the Law of One, the history of it through that, and a few other things, it became quite fundamental. And I was having such a huge it was having such a huge impact with the clients I worked with. And it just seemed to really bring forward what they needed to hear and resonate with and use. So I continue to do that as well.
Yep. Yeah, the Law of One's fascinating. If you go down that rabbit hole, because when I first awakened, I went through. I got into the UFOs and all the conspiracy sort of stuff. It was very interesting. So what sort of experiences did you have when you were a child? Like any spiritual experiences that really stood out to you and thought, is this normal or what's going on? Sort of type thing. Was there anything in particular?
Yeah, there were a lot of times where like lost time. In terms of like zaps of my memory, but also in terms of years. So when my mental recollection is very, very minimal for a large amount of years in my early childhood. Moments as well where I would, as I mentioned, sort of like go from one reality to another very, very quickly.
So what do you mean, for the people watching, can you explain what sort of realities that would entail?
Yeah, so like walking down the street sorry, my computer's playing up, just give me 2 secs. There we go. Walking down the street, holding my parents' hand, something like that, closing my eyes and then opening my eyes and being, 10, 20 meters back or ahead, holding a stranger's hand on the other side. And it just weird phenomena like that, I suppose. Seeing or feeling the presence of entities as well, having certain things like a lot of lights, electronics and things, equipment going off, and seeing spacecraft from afar, like seeing them in the sky. What else?
Did that have you started to work out what all that was when you started digging deeper?
Definitely. So it's been quite a journey, and I think that that's the beauty of it, is that the kingdom of creation that we create, that we are the masters of, are our own, and they're very personal to us. And so I think that's something that a lot of people could take on board, is that regardless of what other people say and what their saying is right and wrong, or this means this or whatever. It's what your personal truth. I've had a lot of people ask like what personal truth is, and I think it's when you follow your own soul's desires and your own what resonates with you, not what resonates with somebody on the internet or whatnot.
Because that's people like to get black and white about things, and it's like, well, you're actually talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I got
just from a different perspective.
From the Law of One.
Yeah.
The fact that Ra, they were so, I guess, disappointed that their message had been distorted. And and that it's that classic human thing, they've done it with everything, every huge thing in society, religion, education, everything, and it has to be boxed in to these systems.
It makes it hard. No wonder we're so programmed. It's just ridiculous. I mean, there's a lot of unlearning to do. And you know what it's like when you start to go down these paths and you realize how programmed you actually are. Because even with spirituality, I find people just set one set of programming and they swap it for another set of programming. It's like, wait a second, trying to get rid of that.
Yeah,
it just makes it hard.
I've tried. I think I stopped quite early on. I think actually there was something like I felt something tell me to hold back, and so I always kind of held back from really, going on a rampage online to find out what things were. I really sort of like did the internal work, only reached out to a select few mentors or leaders, people that I really resonated with. But apart from that, I think that immersing yourself in perhaps too much of that stuff can sometimes be a bit overwhelming and pull you off track.
Yep.
I mean, as well, like sitting in that spiritual place is all great, but we still have to function in this reality and fit into this reality so that we can connect with others.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard when you first get into the spiritual walk and you get all excited about it, and you just immerse yourself.
Yeah.
And then you do
want to run around and be like, and tell everyone.
Wake up, everyone! It's obvious.
Yeah, and I think I've really learned to, that everyone's journey is unique, and it's not my job to save anyone. It's not. It's nobody's job nobody needs saving. We don't need saving. So I think I hold that in my heart as well. And I know that everybody is connected and everybody is their own creator. Or is a creator.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all right to push the slackers just a little, just give them a little bit of a shove, a
little
bit of a seed. But I know what you're saying is because, I mean, a lot of people go through that when you first get into your spiritual walk and you start awakening. You actually push people away because you become toxic, because you're like, come on, look at this. It's obvious what they're doing. And people are just like, think we're tinfoil wearing hats.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I guess you've got as well the, people that I think I've talked about this before as well, where, just like drugs are an addiction, you've got people that are going to use the community and the tools available for maybe not the greater good, or spread misinformation due to, like heavy layers of ego distortion and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, I see it all the time. Stuff comes through, and even though there's some truth in it, when you dig a bit deeper, you're like, oh God, it's just someone's just run away with it. We're all going to die. But it's hard because when people get excited with the spiritual walk, I mean, you know what it's like. I went too far into it, and then you know how you start getting intolerant for people.
Yeah.
In the 3D world, which was really hard.
I think again, like that's something that, bringing it back to the Law of One, is that, and the way I go on about the Law of One, you'd think that I've got like some affiliation with them, but I don't at all. I just genuinely got so much out of these texts, out of the material. But bringing it back to the basics, and focusing just on the compassion and being in the now moment and what you can give to others, and the follow your line of vibration.
Yeah, well, that's what I did. Is I downloaded the audio and just used to listen to it at work, and that because it would have been. It seemed like a very dry read.
I read it online twice.
Yep.
And then I listened to Aaron Abke's playlist.
Yep.
And then I listened to it on audio and correlated it with the text online. And then I got the books.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you just want to tell people, because I know that some people haven't heard of the Law of One. I mentioned it to some people the other day and they were like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what do you mean? Do you want to just tell them briefly what it
of course. So I think there's a misconception, because I say the Law of One, and sometimes people have heard the concept like the understanding of the one unity, like the collective, but maybe not so much Ra and his bringing forth of the material, and I guess the extensiveness of it. So the Ra material was a collection of channeled material from the late 80s, I believe, and mid to late 80s. And this material was channeled by Carla Ruckert, and there was a scribe, and there was also someone facilitating the session as well.
Yeah.
So, and that's Jim and Don. So basically, what Carla did was contact a collective consciousness from Venus, and they had ascended, and the rest is history, I guess. Like the material speaks for itself, but they cover, like I was blown away there's a website, lawofone.info, and they've got a categories section, and I was blown away at the amount of information that they delve into, like Earth's history, different people, different figures throughout history, what all of the densities mean. They go into all the chakras, they go into everything, tarot,
aspects of sexuality,
everything. Like just there was nothing that wasn't covered. And I mean, not nothing that wasn't covered, but I think that they did a really, really good job of covering like all the major fundamental aspects.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how did that impact your journey? Just give you more insight?
That was a big catalyst behind my tarot. It was also a huge catalyst in my channeling, I think, as well. And also in the way I work. So as I mentioned, being of service to others and holding that compassion and that love and that unapologetic, unfailing love that for any human, for any vibration, and really wanting to help, I guess, inspire and enlighten them as well, because I could see how much of an impact it was making for, me and everyone around me.
Yep.
So, I would say that once the channeling took off, I probably did step back from the Law of One a little bit and immerse myself in other texts and other people's content. However, I do always come back to the Law of One. It's something that you can just restudy over and over and over. So I never really liked the idea of, I guess, like, although it's such a great plethora of information, I think that we can sometimes discredit the information by delving into it and ripping it apart and over-analyzing it.
Yep.
I believe that it's important to do so, and that people have done so, and it can be a great journey. But for me, I just like to take those fundamental principles, which I've applied, and they've worked really well.
Yep. So when you were in 20s, you started to dig deep. You found the law of one, and you started getting into energy work. Was that what sort of energy work did you start diving into?
So the energy work was first frequency work, and that led into me sort of just, I guess, messing around with my hands and whatnot, and what felt good, and then stumbled upon creating like a energy ball. Delved into it, like looked into it, because I didn't actually quite know what I was doing at that point.
Yep.
And then once I learnt what I was doing, I was consciously creating after that, so it became a lot easier. And
were you were you doing that before you were healing, or then you got into healing after that?
No, I did that first, and then
okay, sorry.
Yeah, and then from there I was I guess I just, like, everything sort of like deepened at once. Like everything has expanded along my journey. The healing, I created my business because during COVID,
Yep.
I was working as a veterinary nurse. It became taxing on me mentally, emotionally, physically, and I wanted to stay home and homeschool my son.
Yep.
So in doing so, it allowed me to sit at home and, study all of those things that I was already studying, but probably at a more devoted level. When I say devoted, like I was getting like three hours sleep a night for years.
God.
Yeah, because for the last few years, because it's just so I thrive off it. I really, really thrive off this stuff. I can't get enough of it. Yeah.
So yeah, no sleep, just hitting the books.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you do. So do you have a specific way of healing, or do you just, when you get a client, do you just see what they need and go from there?
Yeah, I'll generally start by a Zoom session with a client. It gives me a little bit of a chance to get a feel for their energy, and anything that I pick up in their vibration that stands out. It also allows me to connect psychically. So if anything does come through in that session, obviously I work on a level of like quantum understanding. So I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be, directly with a client. It can be that whereas I'm doing the work and then I speak to them afterwards. A lot of people, I'll generally find out sort of like why they contacted me, what's going on in their life. Like I said before, it can range from developing their psychic abilities, helping them on the spiritual journey, whether they're new to the spiritual realms and overwhelmed, or going through, like the dark night, as people like to term it. Whereas that, the dark night, it's an infinite journey. So where it's not dark, it's just that they're unable to maybe see clearly at that perspective. So helping them change their perspective, harness their inner power, whether I'm doing tarot readings as well. So they're usually like a 15-page reading, which I like to do. With the tarot readings, I like to incorporate as well, astrology, numerology, what all the suits mean. I think it's really important to give people the tools and the skills to start understanding and delving into these subjects themselves. I don't want to be seeing the same people again and again. I'd like to empower them so that they can go off on their journey and take that and run with it, and then create from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you had when you were saying before, when you were young, you used to do shifts like from walking down the road to the other side of the road, and you were talking about aliens before the show, talking about aliens and alien abductions. Can you tell us about that? That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, so I've always had a fascination with extraterrestrials.
Yep.
or extra dimensionals. I've always known that I was extremely connected to something outside of this reality. So much so that it was painful, like quite painful, whether it be in this existence now in this body, or like when in the astral realms in a higher state of consciousness. I was always incredibly drawn to the something else. And so obviously like documentaries, videos, testimonies, documents, I've sieved my way through almost all of them over the years to really like try to get a greater understanding. I think that for me, it was always just a knowing. I never questioned it. Like it was almost silly and ignorant to think otherwise. My dad brought me up with a very open perspective, and he would probe my thought processes and say things like, imagine planets out there with, from a young age of, 10 years old, he'd be saying, imagine planets out there that were of substance that you've never even thought of or considered. So like a water that was something else and textured this and he'd just get my brain thinking. And I think that really helped expand my awareness early on. I've also never had any fear, so I don't hold much of a vibration of fear at all, if any.
So don't upset you then.
Well, in terms of, I don't doubt myself. I don't doubt my connection to source. I never have. From a young age, I always knew there'd be traumas and pains that I'd go through growing up, and I would cry out in my darkest times to something, and I'd always be heard. And I think just these innate knowings have been a huge fundamental part of on my journey.
So have you got any stories about this?
Yeah, sure. So where do we go? Where would you like to know? Astral experiences, or
where's a good place to start?
I'm happy to go into the contact I've made with my red reptilian friend. I do like to speak about him. I haven't too much, but I'm starting to a little bit more. So when I first met him properly was in the astral realms. So for anyone that maybe doesn't understand that, I call it the astral realms. I think our language can be quite limited and restrictive. So in that state, we're in a much higher place, and generally it's, our higher self, our fourth, fifth density layers that are interacting on those levels. So I've been navigating those realms for my whole life consciously, where every single night I'm living that, and then I wake up, and then I take hours to process that and work through that over the day. It's actually quite an intense process, I would say, a lot of the time. And so when I met in the astral a few years ago, this red being, I immediately was struck with the knowing that this was a energy or a being that I had been with, or that had been with me for a vast majority of my time, since childhood or early on. There were, I suppose, when you think of somebody that you love, that vibration is very unique to you and that person. So there's no way that you could ever interpret that to be somebody else. And so in the same way, I knew that this entity was the same entity. When I met him, I originally saw him red with red eyes. He had horns. Now, what was actually funny about this story as well is that my son had met and interacted with this being again in the astral realms prior to me meeting this thing. So he told me, and I had just received a Bible in the mail, you know, like they sign you up for free things.
Yeah.
And I thought, they offered me a Bible and I had no use for it. And I thought, why not? So I got it. And I thought it'll be fun to go through and underline and read things and analyze it. So I did that. And I thought to myself, maybe he's just gone through the Bible and seen something about a devil or something. I disregarded it until I had the experience. And it was very, very full on, a lot of energy, overwhelming. I felt very, very protected by this energy. There was one moment that I did lean in and felt him right up against me. And it was as if, I can't describe it. It wasn't a romantic love, and it was more than my son and me. It was more than me and my mum. It was a depth of love that
compassion type.
No words to describe.
Yeah.
And the protection I felt from him as well. So there was a moment where some beings came storming through, some reptilian beings, and he put a shield over us almost instantaneously. And I just heard telepathically, not this one. And they were just completely instructed to leave me alone.
Yeah.
And it was as if they couldn't see me. I was invisible to them completely. And I felt so incredibly looked after by this being. He placed his hands on my feet that night and sucked using his feet. It was like a suction, my feet. And the next day, like, all of my acne had 50% had just vanished. And I struggled with heavy cystic acne for years, chronic. So that was a really nice experience that has progressed. His race is interested in the development, we'll say, of my psychic abilities. As I can understand, it has progressed quite quickly, and I do have a very open awareness, and I'm very open to their contact. So I think that they've used that opportunity to connect.
So do you know what dimensional planet or anything like that they're from, or?
I have a suspicion I know what planet they're from. I know his name. Now, his name is the name of their race, and it is a vibrational frequency. So I'm not going to say that live on air. I'm not going to put that out there to the public just yet, but it can be said in English, or it can be, like, I guess, delivered in English as a vibration. And very, very interesting times at the moment getting to know this energy. I suppose I was speaking to a client earlier today and really mentioned, how, like with any relationship, it's a slow development and it builds up over time with trust and respect and honor and love and compassion, and all of these things form that connection. And so, like with the connections that we hold with each other, they're more or less the same, and they all develop that attention and focus.
So he's one of your guides. So and he's developing you psychically. What's the rest of his? What's the rest of people around him are doing? What are they here to? What's their interest on this planet, or is this just the focal point at the moment of everything?
So this red one specifically comes from off planet from another system, and they are not under any kind of alliance or federation or group, anything like that. They are sole. They're their own group. They have no interest in, at this point in time, that I'm aware of, working with humans on a larger scale. And I'm still in the process of learning pieces of information from them.
Okay. So is that now when you do you mainly do this in the astral when you do astral traveling? You make these sort of contacts?
It was in the astral. However, since my channeling has progressed, now I like to go into a deeper trance state, or at least a semi.
Okay. So trance channeling?
Yeah, like a light trance or a medium trance state. I feel, although it doesn't take me much to get there, so I can put some frequency on, and I can actually, like, not into a trance state, but just doing some frequency work, and I can pretty quickly get myself in the right state to receive messages from them.
So can you, a lot of people don't know, there's a lot of people probably watching that don't know about channeling. Can you just tell us about the basics of channeling and what it entails?
So what happened, I guess, like with my understandings, they come from a place of, I did it first and then I had to work out and navigate what that all meant. So from that perspective, with my channeling, I was halfway there and kind of semi doing it before I went, well, this is like, what am I doing? And I'm experiencing this. I think this is what I'm doing, and had to sort of like do a lot of research into it. From what I've just always understood is that being a, source, being a being of source energy, I am able to raise my vibration to a point where I can be in contact with their vibration. They are slightly lowering theirs to meet me up there. Yeah. So, and we communicate that way. I receive things a lot of different ways. So sometimes it will just be through knowings. A lot of the times it will be through symbols, words, codes. I'll either hear them in my inner ear or see them. It could be anywhere I'm looking visually. I don't necessarily have to have my eyes closed or open to do that. So, yeah.
Okay, I thought you were going to show us something then.
Oh, no. Sorry, I was fixing my screen. It keeps taking me off.
Okay. It looks fine here.
Yeah.
So if I know there's some people here that are just getting into watching the show that are just getting into channeling and trance channeling, is there any advice that you can give them?
Yeah, I would definitely be ensuring that you have a good grounding system going in. So taking the time to not only set your intentions and to go in there with the right desires and the right intentions and things, but drop expectations as well, sorry. But yeah, when they're starting, I think that it's important to have a strong grounding system and develop that breath work. So that was something that was hugely helpful for me.
Was there anyone in particular that you learned that from, or?
Yeah, Rob Goffia.
Yep. There
was also there's a range of channelers on, Gaia. I like Roxanne Sweetheart. There's a few. There's quite a few.
Okay. So you were talking before the show about alien abductions.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you work with people that have had them, or just yourself, or all of the above?
Yeah, I've worked with. Oh, I don't actually know if any of my clients have been abducted, but I'm definitely in contact with people who have had these stories that I'm, speaking with on a daily basis. When I'm not directly working with a client, I am studying or researching or corresponding with clients and other people and contacts and things like that.
Yep.
So, yeah, lots of
Do you-
wild stories.
Are you going to share any stories with us?
Sure. So,
Because people don't like stories. Don't have to.
well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you.
Um, yeah, I've been talking to a friend recently about, we've been talking, the two of us have been talking quite a lot about our experiences with we'll say grey line, because
Yep.
personally, I think that have been in contact with different beings than he has. However,
Yep.
we've had very similar experiences in terms of just the strange little things that happen,
Yep.
with the camera or seeing things outside or getting information in your mind's eye and things like that. So the greys are definitely making themselves known at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said you were going to say a story.
Yeah. What would you like to know?
What do you think the people would like to know? I don't know. I haven't had any experiences in that much personally.
Okay. Well, in terms of like the channeling contact,
Yep.
they are my experiences. So like I'm doing this on we'll say like every second day. I'm doing quite an extensive amount of channeling at the moment. And when I'm channeling,
Yep.
I'm seeing those beings as they are in my mind's eye.
Yep.
I don't know where to go, where you want me to go with the
Oh, I
story.
was just saying it. Just what you've seen
Yeah.
regarding that.
So regarding like extra dimensionals and extraterrestrials, predominantly they have come through astral or
Yep.
meditative trance experiences. But
Are they giving you are they giving you visions, information, or training, or anything along those lines?
yeah, so I've been training my whole life.
Yep.
That's something I caught on to fairly early. I think by the age of 15, I had a very deep knowing that I was being trained, because it
Yep.
was completely simulated most of the time. It was very obvious to me what I was being put through. There was also like a lot of mental warfare, and that has only progressed. A lot of these things progressed as I progressed as well.
Yep.
The beings being taken on board ships, experiences like that,
Yep.
where they've shown me, I get shown a lot of technology, quite a number of travel technology,
Yep.
what we would probably call it time travel.
What do you think that is? Why are they showing you technology?
Yeah, look, I've questioned this as well,
Yep.
because I don't come from. This is something I think a couple of years ago I really started to hone in and really question, like, why am I getting this information? Because what was strange to me was, in my mind, I was this small little girl from Australia
Yep.
that was, 30 years old and had a very simple, quiet life, single mother with my son, and that was just our life, very small and
Yep.
compact and quiet and peaceful. And it was just strange to me that I was receiving. I remember one time I, by accident, I say by accident, but I obviously intentionally did it on some level. I think it was like the badass in me that was kind of like had a bit of, a bit of courage. Like I really wanted to. I like pushing the boundaries.
Come on then.
I don't play it safe. I like pushing the boundaries, and I wanted to sort of remote view and tap in. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun if like I tapped into something that was, military or something like along those lines. And the success in doing so kind of really hit home, and I sat back and it was like, why am I able to see and experience some of this stuff? Like maybe it's because I'm no threat. But then on the other hand,
Everything happens for a reason.
Well, I know my higher dimensional selves and my counterparts.
Yep.
They're not small, meek little girls. So there's some big, heavy energies that are very, very bold. So I guess it put things into perspective. It gave me a place of power, and it made me sort of realize who I was, and a lot more than I realized.
So have you worked out why they're assisting you? Is it just for you to grow, to help other people grow, or?
I have a very deep desire to assist people.
Yep.
A very selfless desire. So I'm not after any kind of return, I suppose. I enjoy doing this genuinely from my heart, and I think that my openness facilitates that. I'm not sure why as of yet, but like I mentioned before, this is our journey's made up of 1 trillion building blocks, and it's not really about, all of a sudden they'll give me one piece of information and I'll go and save the fucking world.
Yep.
It's the fact that this is my journey, and on my journey, there's been a whole ton of building blocks that continue to come in. And every time they come in, I have a new perspective. So I'm never standing still. I'm always expanding. I'm always growing. And I have a deep knowing that at the right time, the right pieces of information will come to me that align with me, my journey, what I'm meant to do. Because I'm sitting pretty comfortably and pretty grounded in knowing who I am, where I am in this now moment.
Okay. So what sort of advice do you generally give to people when they're getting started, or if someone's getting into channeling, or when you guide people, what's some sort of the basics that you like to tell them, just to help them with their journey?
It depends where they want to go with it. If they're wanting to develop their psychic abilities, or wanting to develop their channeling, like I mentioned, the breath work. But I think that it is important to, no matter what you're doing, to be doing something because it aligns with your higher self, what feels good, what resonates with you. I don't align with the traditional meditation, and I never have, and that's something that held me back for a very long time, because I was trying to fit into that category. And the minute I stepped out and, I laid down, so I made contact energetically doing the Reiki originally, or energy work, because I just felt compelled to put my arms up in this weird way. And I did it because I followed that intuitive line. And that's just what I do. That's the way I live my life. I just follow my line of intuition. I'm very creative. I'm very emotional, and I like to create.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I have a very good understanding of that process, and able to do so.
So follow the prompts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just see where it goes.
Just follow your intuition. I don't think that your higher self will ever steer you wrong. There's a lot of, I think, with so much crap online being thrown around, it's really hard to get lost in the midst of it. And to just go back that's again the grounding thing of the law of one, is to go back to basics and just focus on how can I, be of help to others? How can I serve others? How can I love them unconditionally and compassionately? How can I be of service in my community? How can I be a better person? Not just in public, online, behind closed doors, with my family, with my friends. Am I interacting with them respectfully, with honor, with love? Really getting to the depth of who you are rather than focusing on the external elements. It is fun I never set out to be an energy worker. Never set out to be a tarot reader. I never set out to even do this. If I'm honest with you, I'm working through it now, but I actually had like horrendous anxiety on the thought of coming on screen. I'm not comfortable with it. I don't generally like being on screen, but I realized it was something that I was going to have to do to extend my message out to other people. And like I said, when you're running on a system that is your soul's truth and yours only, then everything that comes forth, that aligns, it's meant to be, okay, well, I'm going to take it. The opportunities that have come forth, they didn't just present themselves spontaneously. So it was in my best interest to grab hold of those. And I urge other people to do the same. Do something that ignites your soul's interest, that ignites the passion. If you're not interested in sitting and doing a meditation at home, don't do that. Or if you're not interested in energy work, don't delve into it. If you're not interested in, go where your interest lies, because that's where the heart of it is.
And let it unfold.
100%.
Yeah.
And trust I was going to say as well, another point just quickly is a lot of people, as where I was going with the stuff floating around online at the moment, there's so much misinformation.
Yeah, please do.
And so I lost it again. Sorry.
That's okay.
Brain.
That's okay. I mean, there's same information, but
sorry, the line of fear, the vibration of fear. So I was speaking to a client earlier today, and it was like talking about all of these protection things that we've got to do before going into that place of meditation and awareness or consciousness. And you've got to ask yourself, are you, if you're putting up so many protective barriers, and you're it obviously means that you're coming from a place of fear. So dropping those barriers and eliminating the fear. Does that make sense?
Are you talking about clearings or stuff like that?
Yeah, I would say around clearing. A lot of people that are wanting to sort of take their abilities or their channeling to the next step have a fear around the entities they're contacting, whether they're a good or bad vibration, whether they're whether they're honest and truthful, whether they what they're saying, whether they can take that at that value. And I think that that's that almost leaning on that too much and becoming too entangled with that. I think it was Rob Gothia that mentioned in a session once, and he said that yes, it's important to acknowledge that if that's part of your reality, but at the same time, giving any more attention to that is only going to mean that you're vibrationally connected and in resonance with that fear. So you're going to naturally pull that fear in.
Okay.
Yeah. So from that standpoint,
manifest it.
Yeah. So I think what I learned early on with my, protection and delving into knowing what resonated and what didn't, what felt good, what didn't, was eliminating the fear, and that really comes with knowing yourself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that stuff does really work. But I guess that if you're worried about it, and
I think we can subconsciously sabotage ourselves so easily.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, sometimes you get bad energies just come in, and you're like, "What the crap is that?"
Yeah, and so
then you deal with it.
We know that it's a reality. We know that at some level it could happen. So from that perspective, we will ensure that we're psychically protected, but we will definitely not sit in a place where we're really allowing that to take our focus.
So don't set up your house like spiritual Fort Knox. Nothing's coming in for me. Well, man, you got all that stuff set up there. No one can get in now.
I need a couple of your bags that you've made.
Well, I had. I got the psychic defense one. I had someone that was doing mediumship, and they had the psychic defense one. They had to take off to do mediumship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, well, it's doing its job. That's what it was there for, just so you can go about your daily business, and it sort of stops people from getting triggered. Yeah. I noticed when you'd be at work, you'd be in certain places that usually people, when you're aware, you start to realize that, why am I always getting angry in this certain place? I remember I used to stop at the lights.
Yeah.
And it was always a certain point at the lights. And I'm thinking, imagine all those people that must have been late for work and just losing the plot. Just in this area where I'm now, people don't realize they're picking up that energy.
No, it's everywhere. We are all, it's just energy. That's all there is.
Yeah. So that was really good advice. Is there any other advice that you want to give people?
Not particularly. I just think that people need to, as I always say, get interested, regardless of what it is that you're delving into specifically. Yep. I think that it would be of your highest interest to find something in the realms of spirituality or development of some kind, and see where that takes you. Have an open mind
and dig deep.
Yeah, dig deep.
Yeah, because I think people do. They get into that. It's too much work. Oh, I got to meditate. I got to do this. I got to do that. And
I also like the not to be overwhelmed. It's it's an infinite journey, and we don't have to get anywhere, do nothing. You could sit still forever and expand multitudes. So in reality, I think we're all doing pretty well. But there's definitely, we can be digging deeper always.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you help train people for channeling and stuff like that? Because I know some channelers that I watch it that are getting into it. They're like, I'm going to watch this one tonight.
Yeah, I would love to. So psychic development, channeling development as well. Tarot readings. Even just, I guess, spiritual guidance, whether it's something that you're wanting that's more applicable to this reality, or whether you're wanting to develop the spiritual side of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you reckon tarot is definitely the way to go?
Yeah. So I think that tarot is, in my opinion personally, and I know that it was the opinion of Ra as well. In my opinion, one of the best tools, we'll say, of communication and connection and understanding.
Yep.
Yeah, as well as astrology.
Astrology is amazing. When I'm not into astrology, but I know some astrologers, and it just blows me away how all that stuff lines up.
It's also amazing. When you really start delving into things, like you mentioned before, the tree of life, when you really start delving into things, you realize how everything overlays, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. So if people want to get hold of you, how do they get hold of you?
So I've got my Facebook page, which is Gaia Intuitive. I've got Instagram, which is, I think it's Gaia.intuitive, but we'll just stick to Facebook, I think.
Yep. Yeah. It's all your links are in the show notes.
Yeah.
So just people click out. So if you want to get hold of it, is there anything you'd like to add?
Not particularly. I think we are all good.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show. It's been great talking to you, Sally.
Maybe just keep love in your hearts.
Yeah.
Keep love in your heart. I think the world needs more compassion right now. It really does.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been lovely having you on the show. Okay, thanks everyone. If you want to get hold of it, Sally, all the stuff's in the show notes. So just go in there. It's on YouTube, so you don't even have to sign up for anything if you want to have a look. And thank you again, and thank you, Sally, very much. Namaste, everyone. Have a lovely time. See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.